Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Collective. We had an excellent show planned for you. Unfortunately, there's some technical issues, so it's Shaun and I at the moment, but that is more than enough, personally believe. What about yourself, Shaun? Do you think that's
Yeah, I think we'll be all right, but you never know. Pat might show up 5 or 10 minutes from now once he
he
resolves
may?
his issues.
He may. He
We
may.
all have issues.
We some of us have more issues than others. Yeah, so we got awesome stuff coming up. We got some cool people coming down the line. But before we do anything like that, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the notification bell because I had a 3-egg omelet today and I'm
Oh,
feeling
again, that's
on
2 in
fire.
a row,
Pretty
is
good, man.
it?
hmm
That's 2 egg omelet days in a row.
Well, I'm finding that my taste for food is starting to come back.
Oh, look at you go.
And I think it might be the fact that I'm actually eating more food,
It's
actual
weird.
like real food.
Wait,
Odd.
wait until you realize you're breathing oxygen.
Oh
We
my
all
goodness.
are.
Oh
It's
my
just that
goodness,
most
I
people
actually am.
don't realize it. Maybe you like
Yeah,
oxygen.
maybe. I mean, it does kind of help.
It does, but it only helps if you realize you're doing it.
That's true. Winterstorm, good morning. Good to see you. Chris, Delta maybe doesn't exist. Ooh, that's good. Could or could not.
It did when I was there,
There
so
you
maybe
go.
they've changed something since.
Maybe. Satch, good morning. Good to see you. Awesome. Got some people in the house watching already. Any thoughts? Anything off the top of your head before we jump into a topic or anything off the top of your head?
Nope. But this episode
Yeah.
is a good reminder, or was a good reminder for me to refollow Pat Mack,
Mm,
because of course my old IG account that was having some technical difficulties.
indeed.
I was following him in that account, but then when you said he's going to be a guest today, I was like, "Oh, I'm actually not following him. What the heck?" So I refollowed him this morning and then caught up on all of his missions to the International Space Station. Did you catch up
Mm,
on that stuff? Did you
I
did you see him planting flags on Mars? What the heck? Dude's so rad.
it's freaking
So
hard,
I
man.
caught up on Pat Mack, and now my recon time is being used wisely so
Mhm.
that if he does show up, if he does resolve his technical issues, I can thank him and you for reminding me to refollow Pat Mack.
Hey, man, I'm here for you. I'm here to help.
Thanks, buddy. You're a
Whatever I
team
can
player.
do, I'm just gonna continually
Just keep
I'll
correcting my
keep correct
shortcomings.
exactly, 100%. But you know what? That's, we have that topic later on in the list here that we're gonna go into at another point, but, it's interesting that you say that too because I think that's a good thing to have somebody that you can actually rely on to point
Oh
out
yeah.
your
Mm.
faults.
Oh, for sure. My
You
wife does it all the time. Not true.
I think you know what? A good wife should, but in a certain
Well,
way.
that's right. That's right.
In a
But
certain way.
like we've been married for 20 years. She knows the rhythm. She knows my uh, hmm, my eccentricities, perhaps is the
Eccentricity,
term.
that's a good word.
I thought so. That's why I had to pause 2, 3 to come up with a viable word that would
Mm,
suitably impress me and hopefully
mm,
you.
mm.
So yeah, it does take time, like day one, you've got nothing figured out. 20 years later, in fact, our 20th anniversary, we celebrated in Nice, France last summer,
Yeah.
in a fancy boy restaurant. First time I've ever had like a 7-course meal, all
Ooh,
chef's table,
yeah.
fancy kind of style. You know what I mean?
Did it get
Food
paired
was
with wine and
delicious.
everything?
Well, I don't drink, so it was paired with fresh air.
Fresh air, and
Unless
the water?
unless we're talking about the open window that we're eating at, as every French man in the entire country walked by smoking cigarettes. I mean, fresh.
Yeah. Fresh air that smelled of cigarettes and cologne.
And it's not just any kind of cigarette. It's a French cigarette.
Mm,
Some of
mm,
the stinkiest out there, by the way.
yeah.
Have
It's actually
you Are you familiar with them?
I actually am.
Well, you need a refresher
It's been a
because
long time,
it's
but,
like a punch in the face.
I'm okay with that. Actually, I was at, jujitsu and one of the guys was asking about, rations at one point, and I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
It's kinda hilarious. The French have cigarettes and wine in their rations."
They got
And
wine in their rations.
well, they did years ago, so I don't know if they
Okay.
still do. But yeah, used to be 2 cigarettes and a little bottle of wine inside the ration packs just because 'cause they're French,
Viva la France.
Which I think is absolutely amazing. And, that actually got a whole conversation started about, like, rations and who has the best and where they come from and like
I
how
mean, that's a conversation that happened every week that I was in. I mean, anytime you saddled up next to someone who was wearing a different uniform, within within 30 minutes, you're comparing rations.
yeah, yeah.
Hey?
What was your favorite?
I don't think I had a favorite, to be
Really?
honest. There's nothing that I looked forward to, and here's why. Because I've eaten too many.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
now what I can say easily, so it's hard to choose my favorite because I
Yeah.
didn't have one, but it's easy to choose my least favorite.
Which one?
It was and it has to be in a certain state. It's gotta be cold because that's when it's at its worst.
Of course.
It's, sausage and hash browns, man. I couldn't stand it.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Mega greasy. Now I had some buddies,
Mhm.
lucky for me. This is where I learned, to barter and Jedi mind trick. "Oh, wow, I got sausage and hash browns again, but I've had so many of them. Does anyone wanna trade?" "Oh,
Mm.
dude, I'm giving you my sausage and hash browns. You gotta throw in your meal plus an extra set of crackers.
Right.
Come
Yeah.
on."
Of course, just to make it equal.
To
I
make it
remember
fair for
we,
them and me.
there's a really great, um there's a really great trick you can play on people because the one of the rations we have is called Navarone. Um, it's a lamb stew,
Oh, wow.
but people don't know it's lamb stew until they try it. And let me tell you, when it is cold, it is not good
Is it the
in
grease?
any way.
When they're cold, it's the grease that put my gut off, man. It would just
Mm.
tear my guts up.
But I think the absolute worst is still the salmon.
I never had the salmon.
Yeah, it's not good. It's
No.
not good at all. Yeah, we won't get too far into that. Comment from Martin. Good morning, fellas. First time on your live. Been a big fan of Pat Mack, University of Badassery for a long time. I even have a whiskey glass made with their motto on it. Got to remind ourselves. I like that.
Nice.
There's keepsakes. That's actually a really good topic to discuss because I've had a
Sorry, I don't
oh,
understand what you're talking
hmm,
about.
hmm. Something to remind yourself of some sort of motto or could be
Just a sec. So anyway, you were talking about, keepsakes
Yeah, keepsakes. That's what I was thinking. Was
to
the fact
remind
that
us of things?
yeah, but there's also a point where it becomes negative,
That's
right?
true.
Where it like a shadow kind of that hangs over top of you. And as an example, I had my original dog tags that I got in basic that I was able to keep the whole way through, all of my time in, and I had them hanging in my truck. And my truck got broken into, and someone stole them, and I
Oh,
was
that sucks, man.
very upset about it.
Mhm, that sucks.
But I was talking to my psychologist afterwards, and she's like, I would have told you to take those down a while
Oh,
ago.
yeah, it sucks that you had them hanging in your truck is what I meant.
Yes,
No,
exactly.
no, it sucks that they got stolen, but they
Yeah,
shouldn't have been hanging in your truck anyway.
exactly. Well, and that
Mm.
was because it was a constant reminder of what I was, right? It was giving me, um, it,
I doubt it was that, it was probably the feel goodness of it.
yeah, there was a feel
Yeah.
good moment. Yeah, I did
Some
enjoy seeing them.
pride, some
Yeah.
connection, some, "Oh, the boys," and all of that good stuff.
Hmm.
But it is a bit of a crutch,
Yeah,
hanging in your truck.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so I like to, even though still have some keepsakes, even though I still have some things from the military, even though I still have some stuff from, back in the day, it's always good to take it with a little bit of grain of salt and be like, this is cool. This did happen at some point, but you can put it away rather than have it. 'Cause- And I say this because I know guys with like the wall of stuff, right? All their certificates and all the photos and all of the stuff from the military that was 20 years ago and nothing new or added into that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, you're making the point that immediately came into my mind when you were talking about your dog tags. It's the idea that, um, it's a representation of a body of work
Hmm.
that allows you to think, "I don't have to do any more work."
Hmm.
And it's the crutch. It's the symbology of, "I used to be a badass, but now I'm a badass through symbols or through
Mm.
T-shirts or through hats or whatever. This hat, of course, a military free fall parachutist hat in Canada. Um, I only just started wearing a couple of years ago, but I've never worn a hat like this. But I mean, I still know how to jump out of a plane and fly a square. And I used to be a badass. I'm not so much a badass now, but I don't need to wear things or drink out of things to be something. They
Mhm.
are good reminders, though, of our past and what we were capable of at one time. But those should be reminders of what we're capable of in the future as well.
Mm. I like that. So it's not so much that it's about what you used to do, it's what you are doing, and
Yeah.
it's a consistent reminder every day to perhaps do your best.
Yeah.
Perhaps something like that.
When can you put up his comment
Yeah.
again real quick? When I was reading that in my, voice, in my head, alls I thought of was, "Good man, whiskey glass."
Mhm.
When you say when he types out whiskey glass and I hear it in my voice in my head, here's what I hear is whiskey glass, sitting down, contemplating, taking
Mhm.
your time, a little sip, maybe a fireplace, by yourself, thinking about the world, thinking about things. And if you've got a glass, now I don't know what Pat Mack's University of Badassery whiskey glass says, but if it has any reference to be a badass, I'm into it.
Mhm.
Reminders like that shouldn't be about you were a badass. They should be a badass.
Yeah. You are right now in the moment. Get some. I do like that. Which is one of the reasons why on the do your best mug, I made it so it was facing you. So you'd look
Mm,
at it every
mm,
time you would drink and be reminded to do your best, do your
mhm.
actual best. Um, and I think that what do you think it is that, like attaches us to those things? What is it? Is it just the memory? Is it the feel good? Like, hey, I used to be able to do this? Or do you think more people are involved in the this reminds me today? Do you think it's one or the other? Or do you think it's a mixture of both? What do you think?
So I've said before that I didn't wear much. I'll correct that. I wore none. I
Yeah.
wore no identification as a civilian or when I became a veteran. I wore no clothing that indicated that I used to do what I used to do. And so I just wandered through the world looking sometimes like a bit of a hippie. And you know, people judge a book by its cover. And if you've got no markings on you, they're going to treat you like you haven't done anything in life sometimes. And that's
Mhm.
not a bad thing because you get an instant read on that person, a legit read. But when I throw on like maybe a Pathfinder hoodie and I saunter down the sidewalk and if there's a tourist in town or whatever the case is, and they know what's up, or if I've got a certain bearing about me as I walk down the sidewalk, they square up their shoulders and they lift up their head and they straighten their back and they walk with a sense of purpose
Mhm.
until they're past me and then they slump down and they do their thing. But at least visually, like if I could walk down the sidewalk holding a Pat Max whiskey glass and if it says "Go kick ass,"
Mhm.
and someone notices that, and then they go out and kick ass, bam, my job is done. So one of the reasons that I wear this is sometimes like I'll wear an airborne hoodie. I've had people say, "Hey, what?" I think I've mentioned it before. "Hey, what frisbee team do you play for? What frisbee golf team? Are you on the airborne frisbee golf team? What are you even talking about?" And so it's a way to have a conversation with that person and inform them that, oh, there's this thing called the military. Now I always say it nicely. I always put the hook into the person to make sure that I'm not being a goof.
Mhm.
But these kind of clothings, these kind of symbols, these kind of things, they should be opportunities to um, illuminate our past, to
Mhm.
encourage others to go pursue that sort of thing to some degree.
I like it. So it's a consistent inspiration rather than a memory.
Mhm.
I like that.
I don't
Uh,
I don't dwell on that stuff, man.
yeah,
I don't live in the memory of when I used to fast rope. I mean, who doesn't love fast roping?
it looks
Uh,
cool. I've never got to do it.
oh, it's too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna say it's Like, you should just line up for fast rope after fast rope like it's a Disneyland ride. But, I mean, I thought they were fun. Why I thought they were fun is because they were rad.
Yeah.
And when you know you're now let's pretend for a moment that some safety protocols weren't in place at the time. When you're diving out of
Perhaps.
the helicopter to grab that rope in midair and slam Master 9000 straight to the ground as quick as you can to do that thing, I loved it, man, because
Mhm.
it was on the edge, and that's what stoked me. So, you know.
Yeah. I did enjoy rappelling. I never got to do the
Mhm.
fast rope, but I got to do the, Aussie rappel a couple of times, and that one was super fun, going head first off the skid,
Yeah,
off
it's
the
fun.
tower. Not an actual
Mhm.
helicopter, but just the tower skid.
Oh, okay.
But I've said this before, I only ever got to ride in a helicopter once, and it was being
Yeah,
medevaced.
that tripped me out. I couldn't
It's
believe
kinda
that. When you
hilarious.
said it, I thought I'd misheard you.
Yeah, no, it's, hopefully one day, maybe I'll go for another flight at some point, but,
Maybe
we'll
you
see what
will.
happens. Satch says, hopefully those past experiences are baselines that we/you can use to continue forging ahead. And I think that's a great way to look at it.
Mhm.
You look at the memory as a baseline. This is what I did. Now I can do more, and then keep
Well,
going.
I don't even, I don't I said I kinda use them as reminders for whatever, but that's probably misstated. So whatever I've done, and
Yeah.
it just made me who I am now. And so I don't have to keep skipping back to young Shaun and what young Shaun thought because it's already in here.
Hmm.
All of the things that I've done are already there. They're already here. And so I don't have to keep going back and using any baselines. They were baselines then that have been built off of, and every decade or every 5 years or whatever, every different career, it's a new baseline that I start working on. But it's always going up. It's never a baseline build back to new career,
Hmm.
baseline build. It stacks. It doesn't ebb and flow in
Mm.
in my world in respect to that kind of a baseline understanding. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I heard a great line that is similar to this is that you never start over from nothing. You start over from experience.
Mhm.
And so every time you do start fresh, you are taking all of the knowledge and all the stuff that you have previous into the new field or into the new job or into the new whatever you're doing.
And it's
Um,
not just knowledge. It's how you move. It's
yeah,
how you see, it's how you hear, it's how you talk, it's how you
yeah.
stand, it's how you smell.
Mm,
All of those things are if you were taught how to hunt, well, now you're a hunter.
mhm,
And so when I walk down the sidewalk, all my senses are hunting, but they're not hunting prey. They're hunting the world around me. They are absorbing all bandwidth around me so that I can hunt my 360 for whatever I'm hunting for.
mm,
If I'm hunting for fun, I'm 360ing fun. If I'm hunting for groceries, I'm 360ing groceries. If I'm hunting for some new information that I don't even know exists yet, I'll find it if I'm in hunt mode. And so hunting to me was taught in the military, and it's something that you shouldn't like, okay, well now I'm not in the army. Wah. Now I'm going to stop smelling the world. When I'm riding my bike, when I was ripping the mountain yesterday, I don't stop smelling.
mhm,
In fact, I just finished my 22 push-ups at the Tree of Suffering. As I got on the bike, my spidey senses went off. Bam, there was a white-tailed deer crashing through the bush. And I don't know if I smelled it, heard it, saw it, or whatever.
mhm,
Sixth sensed it beforehand, but there's no way I should have noted that white-tailed deer because I had tunes on. Well, not turned on, but I had my earbuds on, my full face helmet on. My sound was clamped down. And so I knew it was there before I kind of knew it was there. So those things only happen if you hunt long enough or if you pay attention to the world around you long enough consistently that things just show up before they
mhm.
show up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's lots of those times when we're wandering around in the bush where you're like, wait a second, what is that? And it like to the average passerby, you wouldn't see anything, but you sit and stare at this tree long enough, and then all of a sudden an antler moves out from behind it. And you're like, oh yeah, there it is, and that does happen quite often. Martin responds to you. says it says "Don't suck" on it, Shaun.
Oh, I
My
like that.
my
That's
girlfriend got
awesome.
those made when I started the medical retirement process, and you are right. I do not wear much SAR tech hats or clothing anymore either. Yeah, and for those that don't know, SAR is search and rescue technicians, and they are badasses. Let me
They are
put it that way.
badasses. And by the way, Martin, not only badasses in the sense of I'm going to categorize them as they're kind of badasses, or they're fourth on the totem pole badasses. I'm never going to say that now. Back in the day, Sartecs were rad, but now they're radder than when I
Mhm.
got out. I mean, not only do they work like dogs, but their level of technical proficiency, their skill sets, their knowledge base is immense. And of course, nowadays they've got a tough selection process where they're very particular. They need a certain kind of individual to do that job. They've got to be highly talented, highly motivated, highly everything. And it's now my understanding, in speaking with Tim Turner, Army Sergeant Major, his son, helping to run the SAR Tech selection process / free fall portion of the program. Through Tim's conversation back and forth, I now better understand how demanding that job is. And in my mind now, I could be wrong, but I've established this somewhere like this where JTF2 and SAR Tech are kind of banging in the same space in the sense of Radmaster 9000.
Yeah, I agree. And there, every SAR tech I've ever met has been a Radmaster 9000,
For sure.
and they all the JTF guys that I know are Radmaster 9000s. I think the key is that the mandate is different, right?
It
They
is for
they
sure.
could probably interchange and work together, do all the same kind of stuff, and switch back and forth. But because the job is so specific when you're looking at Sartex, and the job is so specific when you're talking JTF, that they're absolutely of the same level with just different demands as to what the
That's right.
job actually is. So
Different roles, high demands.
yeah.
And I love on JTF too. I love on tip of the spear stuff and special operations and all that good thing. But a couple of months ago, maybe a month and a half ago, I sat down with a young buck who was keen to go to either JTF2 or maybe SAR. And
Mhm.
actually, what I said to him is, I think SAR would be best for you, probably for a variety of reasons. Doesn't matter what they are.
Mhm.
But I consider them to be equally righteous career paths.
Yeah. And I think one of the key points that you said earlier was it's just more of like who you are internally,
Hmm.
right? And there's the one thing that I've known about a couple of buddies of mine who went SAR, they have an innate desire to help somebody at their worst possible moment.
Mm,
And a lot of the guys that went to the Hill or went to CISO or went to go on to Special Forces they were hard charges. Like they just wanted, like, I want to go to the tip. I want to go right to the end of the
yeah.
spear,
Whatever
and
that is.
whatever that is, I want to see what's
Mhm.
up there.
That's right.
And then so there's just that like slight dichotomy because they do interchange amongst themselves in
Agreed.
the mindset, but one
Agreed.
just has a higher priority than the other. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, that. Thanks, Martin, for bringing that up. What am I
Yeah.
doing? There we go.
100%. Don't
Um,
suck, Martin.
don't suck. I love that. That is fantastic.
It is. I love that.
Um, now I got a couple topics here, but anything else you want to apply onto "Don't suck"?
No, I love it, man. And if Martin's got something else to add, then bring it, Martin.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you're the comment of the
Comment of the day so far.
month, not
Month.
even the day. I'll go as far as a
Mm.
week.
I'll give you the
He's
week.
the
Yeah,
comment of the
absolutely.
week. All right.
Comment of the
Don't
week.
suck.
And Martin, hey man, if you ever want to, shoot me a message. We'll get you on here and you can come have a chat with us. I'm down with that. That'd be awesome. So let's talk about. Oh, this is a good one. Disappointment.
Oh, you were this morning.
Why not talk about it? Right? It gives the perfect segue into this. Is that yeah, we are having some technical issues with Pat. I was very excited to have him on here, and mostly because I just want to talk to him. I think it'd be cool to listen to his actual story. Um, but on top of that, the difficulties that I had, the disappointment that I had, was the fact that I've now played it up. Right? I'm like, hey, Pat Mac's gonna be here! Yay! Awesome! It's awesome! Everybody come watch. And then technical issues, things happen. Okay, we got to move on, move forward. But that little lingering disappointment still sits because I wonder, thinking about it, I think it's more along the lines of my desire to produce. You know what I mean? Like I said I'm going to do something and now I'm not able to do something. Therefore, I feel disappointed that I can't produce what I said I was going to.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So it's not so much that I'm disappointed that someone isn't here or that I don't get to talk to somebody. It's the fact that I said something was going to happen and then it didn't.
Yeah, and it's one of the interesting technological challenges that people are facing nowadays that they wouldn't have faced 20 years ago.
Mm.
You can say 20 years ago you could say there's going to be a board meeting at noon. We're providing lunch. Everyone showed up,
Yeah.
whether they were interested in the meeting or not. They're there for the free lunch.
Free lunch. Yeah.
But there's no free lunches over here.
None.
And worse yet, not only are there no crustless sandwiches, but when you say something, you're saying it to the entire world. So it's challenging if you say, you're not even going to believe the episode that we're going to have tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got to deliver against it because you just told the whole world that you're going mega. And when it doesn't pan out, I suppose I'm not even, it's not even a butterfly flap for me. I don't even, it's a non-factor. It's so in the rearview mirror right now. I'm kind of chuckling about it. It'll happen in the future. No big
Yep.
deal.
Oh yeah.
Things happen. But I guess I'm so used to things going a 180 or complete sideways. I'm just used to things being fluid, man, being dynamic. It's absolutely not an issue for me that Pat isn't here this morning. I'm barely disappointed about it. It's just going to happen in the future. No biggie.
Yeah. And I guess the key thing that I was grabbing on there was the fact that it's experience. Right? Like if this was the opening day one collective, and I
big
was
day.
like, Bad Mac's gonna be here and this person's gonna be here, blah blah blah, and then nothing, crickets, right? That would be soul crushing, I think.
For you, not for
For
me.
me. Yeah. And actually here's a very good example. When I first started trying to figure out this whole podcasting / I just want to help people, I want to get information out to people, I set up what I would have called a transitional symposium.
Oh, look at you go. Big words.
Big words, right? And so I set this up and I was like, I'm gonna invite a bunch of speakers. I'm gonna invite a bunch of people. We're gonna sit down. We're gonna talk about transition and how to do it better and what some skills are and what some
Sorry, can I just
are.
interject and ask you a quick question for clarity? Had you done anything before you decided to run an intergalactic symposium?
No.
Okay. So that was a well thought out plan. Check.
Well, actually, no, I had done the Walk for Veterans beforehand. I had done, so like I had some planning experience, but so far this was the pitfall. Everything had worked out, right? I hadn't had any sort of major catastrophe or anything that bad had happened. So we set this whole thing up, got all the things ready. First mistake, or I can't say first mistake, but first issue that happened was friggin' blizzard. Like massive blizzard kicked in. And then
were people flying in or driving in, or were they walking in, or what was it?
They were driving in.
Oh, okay.
Driving or walking. So it was here at Edmonton, and it was it was just supposed to be a local. I reached out to all my vet friends and like, hey, this is what I got set up.
Okay, so it was small. It was an intergalactic.
Yes,
they weren't flying in from the Bahamas or anything.
No, nothing like that. No.
Okay.
And so I set this whole thing up. I was very excited about it. No one showed up. All my speakers showed up.
Oh boy.
No one else showed up.
Oh boy. So the birthday boy is there and no one showed up to the birthday party.
Exactly. Yeah.
Bro,
so it was
that stung.
It stung. Exactly. But in the moment I was like, well, I want to get something out of this. So I can just sit here and be like, well, blah. Okay, well, I guess you guys can go home and I could just shut it down and kibosh the whole thing and be like, blah. But instead, I put my phone in the middle of the table, I hit record, and I was like, all right, let's talk about it. Because we can get information whether people are here or not, and I can pass that information to people whether they're here or not. So let's sit down. And that was the first foray into podcasting, I guess, for me.
How did it go?
Went pretty well.
I mean, how's the recording? How was
The recording?
was it good or
No, the recording wasn't
okay?
good. It was one phone in the middle of like 3 tables wide. Everyone was talking
Oh,
from
okay.
like 5, 6 feet away.
Right.
It was really hard to catch anything. I tried to edit it, didn't know what I was doing, and
Oh boy.
so it didn't really pan
The
out. But
snowball is rolling down the hill.
right, so it was very challenging.
Hmm.
But the disappointment in the moment was, it didn't happen the way I wanted it to. Okay, I still want to get something out of this. How do I do that? And
Hmm.
so, like a shift focus, went to something else. That didn't work. Okay, cool. Shift focus, go to something else. But the point that I wanted to get to is that that level of disappointment set me up for the next thing that happened that didn't go the way I wanted it to. And I was able to shrug that off a lot easier than I did the first one.
Hmm.
And then the next one, major disappointment happened. Okay, and I shrugged that one off. And then the next one, and so on and so forth. So I think it's an experience thing, in that the more times you're disappointed, so long as you don't get bitter, because that will happen eventually, is you will get
Hmm.
bitter. Any
Yeah,
thoughts
but you
on?
got to. I mean, there's so many things to manage in the disappointment cycle.
Yeah.
And to our point today, when I said, okay, so Pat's having technical issues, what's Plan B? And you did that. What do you mean Plan B?
Oh no, Plan B.
Let's talk about how things are going to work in the future. And
Mhm.
so that's what failure is supposed to do, man. If
Yep.
there is a failure, how do we work around the failure? And you set protocols in place. You, me, us have a protocol in place now for technical failures like this.
Yep.
And so it's a learning process. Being disappointed and learning to work through that is a process. Technical applications of how to adjust the path forward is a process.
Hmm.
There's many levels to disappointment for sure.
Absolutely. Winter Storm's got a great comment here. Sean's soul doesn't get crushed. He just makes sure Chance's soul gets crushed twice. Teamwork.
That's right. And not crushed twice. I mean, let's call it what it is. I like to crush Chance's soul and then revive it and then crush it again. I mean, come on, I'm not that cruel.
Well, as long as you revive it the second time, like, can't just leave it crushed. That would be bad.
It'll
Maybe
regrow.
we'll have to get Martin in here. He'll help us. He'll help you work on some reviving techniques or something.
Nice.
It'll be good to go. And Daniel, good to see you. Nice having you on
Hey,
here.
buddy.
So let's talk about what we can do with disappointment then. How do we, once we recognize, well, I guess this is the first pact. You have to recognize you're disappointed and then go, now what? Is that
Well,
the
I
first
would like
step?
to
Or do
do
we,
I'd like to do this rather than stepping into the steps. Let's categorize what disappointment is. And rather than getting into the Webster's dictionary definition of it, I'd just say this. There's a mile of difference between I'm kind of bummed, I'm disappointed, I'm soul crushed.
yeah.
And so when someone says disappointment, it can mean a lot of things. And when I say disappointment like this, boys, I'm really disappointed in you.
Mm,
That's like a cruise missile, man.
yeah.
And so disappointment means something to everyone a little bit different, the person who's delivering it. And then disappointment on the receiving end is different. And so depending on who is delivering, I'm disappointed in you, and depending on who's receiving it, there's almost an infinite amount of ways that disappointment can be um, categorized or determined or understood or ascertained in the
Hmm.
moment. And so if I'm disappointed in you and I deliver it in a way that's going to crush your soul, like it's impactful. But if I'm disappointed and I'm like, oh man, that's a bummer, it's a different kind of disappointment.
Yeah.
And so the deliverer of the disappointment and the receiver of the different of the are very much a fluid or dynamic relationship in the moment. It can make your life hell, or it can grow you in the moment, depending on who's doing it.
Mm. That's a good point. And I was looking at it specifically from the receiving end.
Well, I know you were.
But no, it's a great point in the fact that it is also um, there's a giving side to it as well, right? If you are disappointed in someone else, or if you are disappointed in an action not happening or an action happening that you weren't expecting, or et cetera, et cetera. There is a both a give and taking it, I guess.
There is.
Satch says not crushed, more so pulverized than remolded.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I mean, why
point.
not? I
Yeah,
mean, take it right down to the raw essentials of the bare materials, and
to
then
clay.
correct. In this case, it would be powderized clay. It would just there'd be no water in it. It wouldn't be clay. It would just be dust
That pulverized.
that is then remolded using the person's sweat to
Yeah.
turn it into clay, to turn it into the statue that they can then do whatever they want with it.
Yeah.
I do believe that we all need to be broken down to rebuild from time to time.
So then that would mean that disappointment is actually required in life.
It's mandatory. It's obligated.
Yeah.
If I thought for a moment that calling up Pat Mack an hour before the potty and saying, "Hey, Pat Mack, don't even show up," because it'll mega disappoint Chance Burles. And once he's mega disappointed, he's gonna like scale up to an order of magnitude that none of us can understand. He's gonna go mega. He's gonna be mega awesome. If I thought that that was going to be a logical outcome of that disappointment, guess what? I'm calling Pat Mack and saying, don't show up. Because disappointment is a tool when I'm using it, and disappointment is a tool when you're using it. When we're using it as the tool, it can be powerful. But if you're on the receiving end of it, you still have to use it as a tool. But only you can wield it at that point. If I'm wielding the disappointment on you, well, I can play with that, but you can't play with your own disappointment until you understand that you can play with your own disappointment. It's for you to gamify. It's for you to use the sideways disappointment to grow out of the moment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's kind of funny. Winterstorm says Sean's gamifying Chance's soul. Yep, that's 100% it.
Does that make me the devil?
No, because you're not trying to take it. You're just trying to play with it.
That's true. I'm not
It's a
David
little play
Goggins.
thing. I guess maybe you're a demon.
I'm not taking souls.
I was gonna ask is that I imagine this is a big portion of like selection and going through all your thing is to because I remember you and I were talking about this at one point of getting somebody to do something and then changing the end result midway through, right? Just to see how they handle the disappointment of it or see how they handle the change or anything like
it's
that.
mandatory.
Yeah.
You get a rapid insight to someone when they've built something up into the head, the story that they think the future is going to look like. I can't wait till Pat Mack shows up. I'm going to talk about all these cool things with him. It's going to be so rad. The moment that you start building things up into the future, that's where disappointment becomes greater. And the disappointment shouldn't be greater because the disappointment is being driven by emotion. I'm going to be so stoked in 4 hours. Oh no, it's 4 hours later. I didn't get my stoke. That's how the disappointment becomes crushing. But if you strip out the emotion of the visualization of the future, if you just stay present, if you just do your best, if you grind in the real time, there's far less disappointment. On the scale of magnitude, it doesn't have as big a sting. The world blew it for you, but you in the moment are doing your best. The disappointment it's not as bad.
Yeah.
But it's when it doesn't work out in the real time because it doesn't match up with our future expectations. That's where things start magnifying.
Excuse me. There's another really good example of this was at Pegasus Jump when we were out there and I was trying to get the podcast set up and all the things were going wrong, right? All the things went wrong.
It was fun to watch in the moment.
But I think I did pretty well in the fact that I just kept working. I kept like, this isn't working. Okay, I need to fix that. Okay, that's not working. I need to fix that. Okay, and that's not working. I need to fix that. And there were levels of disappointment throughout that
There
whole thing.
were,
I was
for
riding a roller
sure.
coaster of just trying to
Oh, for
like
sure you
trying to
were,
work
for
it out.
sure.
And I definitely was dehydrated and all kinds of
Oh,
stuff, just sweating
I'm
like
not
a
gonna say
pretty
you
brook.
were a mess, but you
I was,
weren't mega.
I was a mess. That's okay.
Yeah.
I was a total mess at that
But
point in
here's the
time.
important thing on that, buddy. Like
Yeah.
it's good that you raised that as the example. And for anyone who's listening right now, it wasn't a disaster. It was a minor blip on the radar.
Yeah.
But in the moment, Chance was feeling the heat because he felt like he was under the spotlight. And here's why. Because there was what, 5 of us or so that were sitting in
Yeah.
chairs as you sat or as you were setting up the podcast. And it's not like we were a bunch of Barneys.
Hmm.
It's not like we're a bunch of dimwits watching you do what you were doing. There was pressure on you. And then there was the crowd who was watching you.
Hmm.
And so you were disappointed in how things were working out. But at some point, and tell me if I'm wrong, I know I did anyway, started giving you little, hey, buddy, why don't you check that cord? Or, hey,
Hmm.
is the mic plugged in? Did you reboot or whatever? Do you need some water? So you were getting little snippets from the people who were around you who were trying to support you
Yeah.
without turning it into a big deal because there's a way to play that game. You don't want to like step in and take charge of the disappointment moment because the other person won't. All the pressure's off now. Where's the growth? Where's the adversity? Where's the
Hmm.
evolution of that individual? Now, with absence of pressure, they can shut down and no process. And so it's a fine line between making someone feel the heat of the moment without watching them spontaneously combust.
Hmm. And I think one of the things that I learned specifically from that moment was the process will work if you keep working it.
That's right.
And that was the big one that I learned, was that there were times in my life where I would have given up long before I got to where we were, right? Where
Yeah.
everything else was going wrong,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And I got to a point where I was so for those that weren't there, that don't know, I had this whole thing set up. I had Shaun and Seb and Rob and Toby and
Corey.
Corey
Yeah.
sitting in chairs, and I had this whole thing set up. I was trying to hook up to the main
The PA system
speaker, the
and
PA
whatnot. Yeah.
system. There was a documentary crew there filming me as I was doing it. I was trying to get all of my cordage set up and
Oh
make
yeah,
sure that the
buddy, you're under
backdrop
the
was right.
spotlight.
There was a lot of things happening, and nothing was working.
Nothing.
Like my things weren't recording, the cords weren't long enough. This was going that way. These things were going sideways. People's mics weren't working. It was kind of a comedy of errors, actually. Like everything
was.
went wrong. But I just kept running through the thing in my head. Okay, this needs power. That's got power. Good. That line's got to go here. Okay, that one works. Next, this one needs power. That's going. And I just kept working the process through it, and it did help quite a bit when
It did.
you and Seb were like, "Have some water.
Yeah.
Take a second. Breathe. What do you need?"
We're all chirping a tiny bit, but in a way to try to be helpful rather than because like there's a moment when someone's feeling enough pressure that now you can't have a little bit of fun with the moment because it's just too much for them to take. That they've lost their sense of humor, we'll call it.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
should never get to that. We should never let it get to that. Not only as individuals, but as the crowd who's observing the individual. So me sitting in that chair, I'm looking for ways to de-escalate you
Mm.
rather than rev you up.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line between having a bit of fun and then pushing someone over the edge. And that's not the moment to push them over the edge in front of all of their peers. The moment
Mhm.
to push them over the edge is when you take them off to the side and say, okay, so there were some mistakes made. How about this? Show up a half an hour earlier next time or
Yeah.
whatever. Go do your recon next time.
Mhm.
Go do your blah, blah, blah next time. Like those moments shouldn't be in front of all of your peers. So you got to kind of take the edge off the moment, but not, not too much.
Yeah. And you don't want to make it a joke.
No.
Because especially if someone's working hard, if someone's
Oh, yeah, for
really trying
sure.
to get something to work and you're just sitting there making fun of them the whole time,
All right.
then you're doing the same thing but in opposite direction. So
unless you're a tight crew.
Yes.
And I mean mega tight.
Yeah.
Like, this is not the first rodeo. It's the 1000th sideways moment for all of you, not
Yeah.
just the one guy. And in those moments, like, that's when the dark humor comes out,
Oh, yeah.
you know? And so it depends on the crew, it depends on the culture, it depends on how tight you are.
Mhm.
But if we were the right crew, that moment would have been all about the mocking and teasing and laughing and prodding and poking and trying to make the guy break down
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
So it depends on the crew.
Yeah. I was just picturing you, like, take it I'd plug everything in and watching you just, like, take them apart and, like,
That's
tie 'em in
right.
knots and like, "Oh, I don't know what happened."
But
I could
I'll say this, that what you were mentioning is, in the past, there have been times where you would have just, thrown up your hands and quit and said, I can't stand being around people. Make
Yeah.
make the weak ass claim of
Yeah.
whatever crutch you were using in the past, but you didn't. And that was awesome. And as I was watching you on the BJJ mats last night, you put up that little clip, which was
Yeah.
rad, buddy. I'm glad you did. Thanks. As I was watching you in that role, there was a moment when I saw you almost quit, but you didn't. Like, it was a split second. Like, I mean, like, fractional, but I could see it in you. Like, it was a micro pause, and I could see you almost deliberating. Am I done, or do I still have some fight in me? But you
Yeah.
fought the entire time.
Mhm.
But there was a moment there where I saw you think, I believe, I think I saw you consider it for a fleeting second, but
Yeah.
you kept on in the game. Am I wrong, or?
No, you're absolutely right. There was
Okay.
and that's why I wanted to put that moment up too, is because that's exactly what I was looking at. Was
Mhm.
that there's especially I've been rolling with Braven for quite a while. He's ridiculously fast. He's a
Mhm.
19-year-old brown belt. Like
Mm. Looks like he's got some sharp knees there as well
he
on the knee and
does.
belly.
Yeah. And I've been in that position many times and I've
Sure.
been stuck in that position many times. And the reason I wanted to put that post out of that particular moment was the fact that I was like, I could give up right here and be like, yeah, well,
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
could have.
yeah, okay, he's got me a knee on belly. Yeah, I don't really, he's got all the controls. I
This
could just
this
let
is
him
where I
move into the
always
next.
quit.
Exactly. And I just was like, nope. And I, shot my hips up, back up, took them right off balance, and I carried on with the roll and kept moving. Um, Later on in that, he actually almost gets an armbar later, but
Mm.
defended that one too. But that was the point, was the fact that when it's the moments when you think you're done, you're not actually done.
No, never.
You're like not even close. There's
No,
still
never.
a million other options that you just haven't
You're only
thought
done
of in
if
that
you
moment.
believe your own nonsense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
And that was the whole point of the post, was the fact that, it doesn't matter. You could sit there and be disappointed in yourself in that moment, like, oh, you got neon belly again. Or or I guess is both. You can say, well, he's here again. What I've done so far hasn't worked. Let's try something new.
Yeah,
And
or maybe it could go like this. Oh, he's neon belly again. Finally, thank goodness it took him a while to get there. Now I'm going to dot dot dot.
yeah.
So that would be plan B, or in your case, it'd be plan A,
Hmm.
because he's going to get there. He always does. You always quit. Whatever the pattern of the past. But your plan on that day is, not only am I not going to quit ever in this position today, I've got a little counter that I've
Hmm.
been all up on the YouTubes researching. I've got my little secret move up my sleeve, and that's what I'm going to drop on him today. Doesn't matter if it works or not.
Hmm.
You need to have the conviction to stay in the fight, but you also have to have something up your sleeve, like belief in
Yeah.
yourself, that maybe, just maybe, you've got a real fighting chance, not just fight.
I was I had a class with some white belts a little while ago, and they were asking, like, are we ever gonna win? And I was like,
No.
no, like, no, that's not the point. Um, and they were like, well, like, what is the point? And I was like, honestly, as a white belt, your whole goal right now is just to survive.
Right.
Just focus on that. Don't worry about winning. Don't worry about submitting. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just literally survive. And the moment you can make it through a round, then you start thinking, now I'm going to make them work for it.
And then
You
you could
just like,
say, from now on, rather than taking us off on a tangent about white belts, you could talk about, what you do as a white belt you focus on not being disappointed
Yeah, I
every
was gonna
single
get there.
round.
I was gonna
Oh,
get
were
there.
you?
Yeah, I was. Oh, taking my time. Yeah, exactly. Well, that was what I was gonna say, was the fact that there's a moment where you start saying, "I'm gonna make them work for it." And in that moment when you're saying, "I'm gonna make them work for it," you've removed the disappointment, right? Because 'Cause you're no longer thinking about whether or not you're gonna lose, or whether or not you're gonna tap out, or whether or not the future isn't there anymore. You're thinking just in the present of, "I'm gonna make them work." And that's it.
You can do that on the mats, but not in podcasts?
Indeed I can.
Oh,
Indeed I
fancy that.
can.
So you can control the future disappointments. Interesting.
Indeed. And not only can you control it, but you can practice it through
Ah,
minor disappointments and through recognition of your own abilities and what you have either been disappointed in, found disappointment in, or had other people disappointed in you. Take those moments, learn from them, make adjustments, and build upon them in the future. It's like almost like experience helps.
yeah. And then I think you can even turn experience into like wisdom.
What?
That's what I've heard.
That's what you heard. Perhaps at some point, maybe we can discuss this on some sort of online platform where other
I
people
hope
could
so. Maybe when Pat Mack joins.
maybe next time. And, but I think this is it actually worked out perfectly and almost like I planned it.
Which you
But
didn't,
I
because
didn't.
we've
Yeah.
already discussed
It
that.
would have been really cool had I planned
If
this.
if you had a plan B, check.
This worked as a very good plan D or F, I think we're at right now. But
I'm not even sure it was a plan. It was just an improvised moment that I'm
yes.
totally good with. Totally good with. It's a great topic. By the way, we haven't really talked too much about
No,
disappointment.
we haven't. But so well,
It's disappointing, by the way.
I am disappointed in myself for disappointing you in this
You should
moment
be.
of talking about disappointment. So let's talk about specifically. We've talked about what disappointment is, where it comes from, all that good stuff. But what do we do with it? If you
Well,
do
what do
find
you
yourself,
do with it?
what do I do with it? The one thing I do is take a deep breath, and I focus myself. That's the first part. Once I get the deep breath in, and I actually can focus on the now, then I can say, okay, what can I do about it? And if that's a whole discussion in and of itself in my
It
own
is.
head, right? And I'm running through the processes of like, what have I done?
Nothing.
What haven't I done?
In this case, nothing.
Well, that it's
Well, I
both
mean,
sides of
if
it.
we're just talking about today,
Yeah,
you'd done nothing
true.
other than just sit there being disappointed. So,
Yes,
okay, in your head, those are thoughts, those aren't actions. And I
true.
suppose that's super important.
That is a good clarification, because you're absolutely right. There were lots of thoughts going on in my head of what I should be doing, or what I could be doing, or what, et cetera, et cetera, et
What
cetera.
would be appropriate or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, what I actually did was I was talking to you. I took a breath. I changed my mindset. And by changing my mindset, all I did was there's nothing I
Listen
can
to
do
me.
at this moment.
Because that's not actually how it worked. I
No?
came and said, where are we at? What's plan B? The
No, and
moment I
I
said
said,
that, then you got to work. But until
mm,
then, you'd spent the morning all up in your head coming up with plans, but no actions. And so it took an external variable to step in and say, hey,
yeah,
sit up straight and get on with the program. Now I'm
that's a good point.
paraphrasing,
No, absolutely.
but this is something that isn't unique to Chance. It isn't unique to me. It isn't unique to anyone. From time to time, if you don't have a plan B, you need someone to step up on you and do this. Hey, what's your plan B?
Hmm. I like that. What's next?
Yeah, and all it took was that pull the trigger, shoot the round downrange at you, and all of a sudden you're in the game.
Yeah.
It just took a tiny bit, just a quick nudge.
Mhm.
And that's what life is about, is getting the right nudges from the right people so that you can quickly get recalibrated back onto ... what you're already capable of.
Now, here's a good point, is that I have surrounded myself with people that will give me that nudge.
Hmm.
And I've taken the time. There was a point in time where I had a group of friends that would not have given me that nudge. They would have sat
Mhm.
there beside me and been like, "Oh yeah, it's all screwed up." It's not even worth the time. Don't worry about it.
Mhm.
Right. And they would just would have agreed with all of my disappointments
Yeah,
and been like,
it would
ah,
have been
yeah,
a sob
whatever.
fest.
Right. But in the last while, I have taken the time to develop my circle of friends to the point that
Yeah, you have.
when I need somebody to course correct me, or when I need somebody to check my arcs, they're there doing it already. I
Yeah,
don't
for
need to
sure.
go to them to say, "What am I doing wrong?" Which at times I have, but the key point of that is the fact that that's part of the process. And if you're sitting there disappointed and everyone around you is just disappointed with you, not poking you in the chest to say, "Hey, what's next? What do you got? What do you got up your sleeve? What's down the pipe?" Maybe it's time to start looking for different friends.
Well, I think it is, and here's the other piece that I will add to it, and you already know this, buddy. You actually went through it yourself with me because
Mhm.
I'm a handful, as I've stated before. So, if you can hang on for the ride, if you can like just bite down on your mouthpiece for a few days and calibrate to the velocity of the individual who's poking you in the chest, as soon as you get right with it, it's just normal.
Mhm.
And now you're at a position where you've got so many good people surrounding you who are hard chargers or however you want to categorize it. Your world is now way different than it was several months ago because
Oh yeah.
you're used to being in this mix. Like it's so normal that we do this bam bam bam. You don't sit down and spend a week having a little hissy fit or having a little meltdown or having a whatever that you would have done years ago
Yep.
because that's what your friends would have wanted you to do. Sink deeper into your disappointment. Guys like me, guys like my friends, how I became how I am is because of my friends, just like you're becoming who you are because of your friends. Disappointment, it's always going to be there, but it's a non factor. If you move forward, always forward.
Mhm. I like that a lot. There's a consistency there, right?
Mhm.
Disappointment is there. It's going to happen. There's going to be points where you get disappointed where things don't go the way you expect them to or want them to. But if you sit in that moment, then you're no longer moving. You are static,
Mhm.
and you need to be able to move. Same thing in that post that I put out yesterday is that doesn't matter how bad you think it is, doesn't matter how many times you've been there before. All it takes is action.
Well,
You
it's
just got
only
to
as
act.
bad as you allow it to be. I
Yeah.
mean, if you've been in that bad situation before and you keep accepting that same bad situation, that's on you. That ain't the
Hmm.
world. That's you being lazy or sloppy or non intellectual in the moment, not trying to figure out the problem each night that you go home and
Hmm.
hit the YouTubes on how to solve neon belly from this brown belt. Like those answers should be right there. And when they keep failing, you should have new answers every night that he neon bellies you until like 27 sessions later. You can't wait until he puts his neon belly
Hmm.
because then he's going to get it.
Yeah.
And that's how life should be. You are managing your disappointment by creating solutions proactively for the future, not living in the future thinking that you've got the answers. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. Uh, well, that's it's almost an hour here. Any final thoughts on disappointment or anything else we've talked about?
No, I'm not disappointed that Pat Mack had technical problems. This was a good conversation.
Yeah,
So I will be happy when Pat Mack shows up. But for now, this was good.
I agree. And I have work to do.
We all
I
do.
got yeah. Now I got to get my plan. I got to get a new plan A. Got to start working on a plan B, plan C, and possibly a plan D for
And
any other
while you're
eventualities.
planning to plan, you could also plan on getting on your bike today and shredding some dirt. How about that?
Ooh, shredding some dirt. That does sound good. Although it is Thursday and I will be on the mats today.
Yeah. You know, there's believe it or not, you can do more than one fun thing in a day. I know it's
What?
weird, bro.
What? No way.
Like,
Can't
I
do
mean,
more
even
than
when this podcast finishes, like when it finishes, the day doesn't finish.
no.
Our days don't start when we record podcasts and end when we
Oh.
finish podcasts. There's all these other hours.
I thought that was my whole life was just like this 1 hour right here. This was it. That's all I
Well,
existed.
I'm disappointed that you thought that.
Well, as we all learn how to manage our disappointment, as we all build upon our skills and our experiences from our previous lives, that means we can grow every day, and you can do that here with us on The Collective. See y'all tomorrow. Chimo.
Chimo.